Next Best Picture's official YouTube channel. I am your host, Matt Neglia, and joining me today here, we're doing a bit of a spotlight interview with other creatives out there. We have someone who's been a guest on the Next Best Picture podcast before. He's got a very successful YouTube channel called The Film Drunk. Jonathan Fuji, everyone.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I always feel so honored every time I get that DM. It's like, wow, he's thinking of me.
I'm a big fan of YouTube content creators, and I follow a lot of people on here. And you're one of those folks that just kept popping up in my feed, maybe because I would constantly always type in stuff to do with award season, Oscar predictions. And I saw you were doing that stuff. I saw that you were constantly on top of it, giving people regular updates. And even if you were still kind of figuring out the knowledge, like as you went, you were still persistent with it. And I would just constantly see you pop up in my feed. And I'm like, who is this guy? And then when I clicked on your content, I was like, this guy's the real deal. He's fantastic. So
dang, YouTube algorithm right there. Thank you so much, YouTube. Thank you.
Well, in any event, I want to first start off by asking, tell me a little bit about how you got involved in all of this. Where did it all originate from in terms of getting on YouTube, starting the channel? Was it always meant to be just about movies, a mixture of movies and awards? How did it all come to be?
Sure. So let me see. How do I handle this here? So I guess in college, I kind of realized that I was always someone who did enjoy this. Obviously, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't. Because, you have some of those friends where it's like, hey, you want to see a movie? They're like, nah, I don't want to see a movie. If someone asks me, I'm just like, yeah, sure. Yeah, whatever. What do you want to see? Okay, sure. I've already seen that, but I'll see it again. I was always like that person. So in college, not gonna lie, when you're just working and doing homework and you're just kind of down in the dumps, I'll just be like, all right, I just want to watch a movie. And kind of with that, I was like, I did a very, very brief stint. And when I say brief, I really mean like a week or two writing for some site. I honestly don't even remember what it was called, but I know I was writing for it, and that was kind of right when COVID hit. So it was okay. I was working at Apple. It was remote. Very thankful for that. So I was kind of like, all right, if
Former
I
Apple
want,
employee too, by the way.
oh, shout out,
I'm not
let's
kidding.
go. Yeah,
6 years I was at that place.
sweet. Yeah, I was there for like almost 3 years. It was good. It was good during college. They were very nice.
Get that stock money.
Oh, see, exactly, you know. Yeah, I was kind of like, if I want to have this hobby, because anything I do, I was like, if I want to have this hobby, I want to like be good at it, whatever that meant to you or to me, whatever. And I was like, in my head, I was like, I don't think I can get there with writing. Knowing myself, I think as a writer, I'm like, okay, I'm solid. I didn't think I could really stand out. And I feel like people have a different relationship to writers than content creators or video people, which is something that just with my age, that's kind of how I grew up. I really feel like I was there at the perfect time of when YouTube blew up with like Ryan Higa, like How to Be Ninja, like that video when it had like 1 million views and 1 million seemed impossible with Smosh. So I've always been interested in that. So I just said, all right, I think this is my chance. Like the COVID, as awful as that was, like this is my opportunity. And I just did it. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't care if it took off. I just wanted to have an outlet. I would just speak into the void. If someone was there, great. If not, who cares? And been pretty fortunate to, at least in my eyes, pretty organically, and I think at a much faster rate than I would have expected to grow. To your point with like awards, I'd like to ideally put out a video once a week. And I remember I didn't have a video. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I was like, all right, like I'm a kind of a competitive person. At least, I enjoy basketball, the playoffs right here. I was like, so I do like the Oscars. I do like following it. So I was like, okay, I'll just do some Oscar predictions. It's going to be my worst video ever. No one is going to like click on it. It's going to be like an hour long. It's going to be one of my worst videos. I recorded it, barely knew what I was doing. I put it out there. And then that was like the first video to hit like 1,000 views. And I was
remember
like,
this.
I was like, what the heck? I was like, why are people watching this? Like the quality is so bad. My thumbnails are so bad. I definitely do not have the vast knowledge that you do, or even some of my just subscribers do. But people like clicked on it and they liked it. And I got that feedback. And I was like, I guess there is like a niche here that people respond to that I thought was just like me and a few other people would even click. And that's kind of when I decided to a little bit make the pivot because I was always interested in it, which is good. I'm not like faking it just to get views or whatever. But that's when I kind of realized that there's like a market here versus something like talking about Marvel explained, which I wouldn't even know, but that's already too saturated. So
Mhm.
I kind of got lucky. I don't mean to ramble, but it really does take a lot of luck with this. I mean, I was very lucky to have like the Oscar expert and them notice me before I was really even where I am now. Like I didn't have that many subscribers like when they noticed me too. So I've been lucky to make some good connections and friends here.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of what you're speaking to, especially considering being at a certain place in time in your life. I too graduated post college and didn't really know where my life was going and had to do a lot of soul searching. And, I didn't know the first thing about maintaining a website. I too don't think I'm a great writer. I also didn't know how to do a podcast.
Mm,
Everything just kind of happened organically because it's the passion that drives us. And then,
right.
sure enough, very similar story. Pandemic happens. You think, oh my God, what are we going to do? And then all of a sudden, you realize that we did have a little bit of a following, but I could tell that the following really grew strong because of the
Mm,
pandemic. I think
yeah,
people were just starving to feel a connection to people during that time, and they
definitely.
became connected to us through what we were putting out there, about stuff that they care about, right?
Hmm.
So I could definitely relate to pretty much everything that you said there, with the
Yeah.
exception of I did have some people to help me out when I first started, but believe me when I tell you, it was not like people I looked up to. It was like people
Mm,
who I love and respect dearly now, but at the time I
yeah.
didn't know who these people were. And what I
Sure.
came to realize, but they were just like the nicest people in the business. But when
Yeah.
I first started, like nobody wanted anything to do with me, essentially. And so
Look at you
but
now.
but look at you too, man. Look at you too. And what I want to ask you next is, how do you decide what content you're going to do? Do you plan it all out? Do you just react to what's going on? How does it work? And do you stick to a certain schedule?
Yeah, there's no real clear answer. So, like I said, I like to ideally put out a video at least once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally twice if I can. Sometimes during the slow months, it gets a little tough, but ideally once a week. So with that in mind, I kind of look at what's releasing on the schedule, what's like a movie that people will actually care about if I talked about. So for at the time where we're recording, Beau is Afraid, I feel like that's a movie people would want to hear at least my thoughts or some discussion on. So ideally, I look at the calendar, I see what's coming up, I plan it with the embargoes. You kind of juggle it, but
Mm-hmm.
you kind of do all that. That's kind of takes care of one video. And then if I have time for an additional one, I'll do it. I like to have my stuff planned out at least like a week in advance. I'll admit, April, it's been like a slow month just
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what movies we're getting, in terms of what I myself want to talk about. So it's kind of a tough balance, but I'm very like strict about it in my head that I could like
Mm-hmm.
ramble on for like 20 minutes if I wanted to. But once a week, movie reviews, sprinkle in some Oscar stuff, and you just kind of adapt really.
Yeah, and there are some content creators out there, they too follow the once a week method.
Mm,
And I look forward to it. To me, it kind of helps with the anticipation factor of looking forward to what is that one video that I'm going to get that week.
yeah,
I find that there are very few channels that can maintain that level of interest. But at the same time, if the content is good, people will come out in droves for it, which is pretty awesome.
right.
So tell me this much too. When you are doing your reviews,
Yeah.
do you, I notice that you always do them as, yourself usually. Do you, have you considered bringing on guests? And if so, like what would that look like? Was there ever a time where you thought about bringing on like a co-host and having it be a duo as opposed to a one-man show, or was it always just nah, it's just going to be me, and this channel is a representation of who I am, ultimately an extension of myself?
Yeah, I've definitely thought about that. And if I'm being honest, I think people respond better when there's two people. I think it's a little bit more engaging, and I think the personality shows a little bit more. So if my main kind of goal is, yeah, tell people about, movies and everything, but at the end of the day, I want them to be entertained and feel like they didn't waste their time watching a video. I feel like with someone else to bounce off of, it's a little bit better. So I've definitely thought about that. It's just really I find it way too hard to keep up with the schedule with someone else. With this channel being myself, like I decide when to record, what to do, when to post it, how to edit it, which is a lot, but it is some nice kind of creative freedom, I guess, where you're not beholden to someone else. And I'm sure that person, whoever my theoretical co-host would be, would feel the same way about me. So in that regard, I feel like I would keep it myself, at least for this channel. I've always thought about how I want to expand this, and people know on like some of my live streams, I've thrown out other ideas that I want to do with other people, and something that I wanted to do even last year, and I want to make more of it a priority this year is with collaborations. So stuff like with you, I think is great. I know people love when, I go on like the Oscar Expert and we talk or whatever, and just other people too, though. So that regard, I try to, I don't know, it's not even a balance, but at least try to do something like that, because I also think that whether the person I'm going on has a bigger following than me or vice versa, I just think it's helpful, to be honest, as long as, the personality is real and I like your content, I'm willing to do whatever.
And I think our fans get really excited too when we show up on each other's shows. I know when I went on Oscar
Hmm.
Expert's show in person, everybody freaked out because
Yeah.
they had never had an in-person guest before.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you being here right now, people are going to be excited about this too.
Mm.
So I agree. That's part of the reason why I wanted to do something like this is I want to not only put a spotlight on everyone else, but also to just foster these relationships and get
Right.
our minds together to talk about. Right now, I know we're talking about you and your show and how you do your content, but also too, I'm hoping it can evolve at some point into discussions about the industry, uh, whatever is going on ultimately, whether it's film and television, award season, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But we'll see over time.
Right.
One thing you did mention though was you mentioned that you have a goal to entertain your watchers, your subscribers.
Hmm.
And I'm curious to know, can you tell me what goes into a good comedic edit when you're putting together a video? Because I've seen people try this and
Hmm.
the timing of it is so precise. Do
Yeah.
you follow like a rule of if it makes me laugh, it'll make someone else laugh? Do you just instinctually know that it works? Like, how do you go about finding those perfect cuts?
That is a great question. So I think one, if it kind of makes me laugh, then I assume it'll make other people laugh. Sometimes I'm just recording and it's really stupid to like laugh at your own joke or whatever when it's literally just you in a room. But if that happens, then I'm like, okay, like that's staying in. There's this little trick I do outside of just straight up cutting off right before I like drop an F-bomb or something, because that's like pretty obvious and shtick. I on every single video, even if it's not like a joke, whatever, I I make the editing process way longer than it needs to be, because I could just, my video file, audio file here, combine it, cut it up, export it, and I'm done. What I do is when I cut two separate clips, I'll detach the audio and I'll layer the second clip's audio. The first syllable will overlap with the last syllable of the previous clip. And I know that sounds like there's not going to be a difference. Like you can watch my videos, you'll probably be like, I don't really see the difference. But when there's a joke and I have that layered perfectly, I've done it where I just keep it separate and it saves me so much time. I've done that. It is so awkward to me. Like with my eye now, I watch that, I'm like, God, that is awful. So every single video I do now, every single clip, regardless of if there's a joke or not, I detach the audio, I layer it that way. And it's such a small difference. But since I'm the one editing, I really notice it. And I think that is what the subconscious of my subscribers, they will come to appreciate. So that's a little trick right there. If people want to waste more time editing as if it wasn't time consuming enough.
Oh, believe me, I can relate. I get told all the time, why don't you just record the show and upload it as is? And I'm just way too much of a perfectionist, like
Yeah.
truly too much.
Yeah.
And I think people appreciate also the rhythm and the pace
Right.
of a good edit, which totally for me is always better than listening to something that is just uploaded as is. I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever listened to a podcast or watched a YouTube show uploaded as is, even though quite frankly that's what this is going to be uploaded as, and walked away feeling satisfied with it. So
Sure.
hopefully other people do though. I don't know.
Yeah.
In talking about the fandom and your subscribers, what
Yeah.
has been the single biggest difference that you've noticed over time as your channel has grown in popularity and the way that they respond to you, interact with you?
I think the definitely the biggest difference I've noticed is that I will get like I'll get roasted, really. And I love that. I absolutely love that. I love when people like there's someone who comments on like almost every single video of mine who's like, the film junk is the type of guy to blank. And it's just like it's a little jab there. And every time I see that, I'm just like, that is so funny. And anytime there's like a Steven Yeun project, people are in the comments being like, oh, like your dad. And I think it's so funny. I think that's the thing that I've definitely noticed the most is I think because I feel like as human beings, you kind of know the person where they'll be able to kind of handle like a light roast or maybe someone that you don't think you should even bother jabbing at. And I think just with my personality, how I talk, and I just assume that they become more comfortable. So that is definitely the thing I've noticed the most because, when you're starting out, even though once again, I also had a different mindset on it, but typically when you're starting out, you don't want to see any jabs or roasts or even somewhat mean comments. You don't want to see that. But now I kind of look for it, to be honest. So I love that.
I like that you feed off of that. Not everyone has the
Yeah.
thick skin for that. I mean, I have my
Hmm.
good days and I have my bad days, and it all depends. Everybody's different when it comes
Yeah.
to that side of it.
Yes.
Um, so the next thing I want to know then is when you do upload a video
Hmm.
and it's released out into the world, do you pay attention to, I mean, we're talking about the comments right now. Do you
Right.
actively pay attention to analytics comments, or are you just focused on getting to the next one?
Um, no, I'll pay attention for like a day or two. I just want to see how it's tracking really and how people are receiving it, I guess. The tough thing with YouTube is you kind of have to talk about numbers. And I don't like doing that because I don't want people to think that I'm only thinking about numbers, but numbers tell a certain story to your channel and how people are receiving it. So you kind of have to pay attention to numbers. But
Who are you
outside of
explaining that to? The fandom or somebody else?
yeah, I guess just my subscribers because when I was like younger, if I heard like YouTubers that I would watch and they would just talk about how many subscribers they got, I would always be like, oh my gosh, dude, like you only care about getting subscribers. And at this point now, like some people are like, oh my gosh, you're almost at X number. And I don't really like to talk about it because I don't want to give off that impression.
Mm-hmm.
But since numbers tell like a certain story to your channel, I do pay attention to it. I see how a video does, what they respond to, how the comments are, and particularly audience retention, because that's something that I do care about. Because unlike a movie theater where theoretically you're trapped in and you kind of are like forced to commit your time, with YouTube and I think everyone's brains now, especially with like the TikTok or whatever, when they can just click off in a second if they don't like it, that's something that's pretty important to me. So I also pay attention about that.
Yeah, as somebody who doesn't care about numbers that much, I care when I need to. But
Mhm.
like for the most part, I try to just focus on the work. I try to focus on the team.
Yeah.
Going back to the co-host thing earlier, I have found that life is a lot easier if you have a super small team
Hmm.
or a super big team, but having like a medium sized team of people is really tough to coordinate a show around, right? And having guests
Yeah.
and things like that. So I do tend, since my team is big, is I tend to focus more on them and their needs versus um, how like I try not to get held up on the numbers too much.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that if you are taking care of the people that are working alongside you and you've
Hmm.
communicated a clear vision and purpose and you know the content is where it needs to be, the numbers
Yeah.
will fix themselves out over time.
For
Um,
sure.
I respect and I understand the idea of everything has to continuously go like this all the time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm also a firm believer in peaks and valleys, and that you're going to have high
Oh,
points and you're going to
yeah.
have low
Yeah.
points.
Most definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to also, I think sometimes, because maybe you could cite an example here. Have you had a
Mhm.
time where you spent so much time on a video, thought it was like the greatest thing you'd ever done, uploaded it, and nobody gave a shit?
Yeah. Yeah. There's yeah, there's definitely one where I watched, I did like a live reaction kind of cutaway with the 365 days sequel.
Mm-hmm.
I watched that. I recorded it, recorded parts of the movie. It was probably the most time I've spent editing a video because it wasn't just me talking about it. I was like cutting in clips from the movie. I had to make sure it wouldn't get copyrighted, so I had to edit it a certain way with the commentary, getting the footage from the movie, and it did like okay. It was at that time it was like okay. The people who watched it loved it, but there was a part of me where I was like, damn, like I spent all this time on this video, and then you'll see another video of mine where it's like a minute long, and then it'll just do way better, and I'm just like, god damn it. So that happens all the time, all the
I
time.
see equivalents of like writing a short review on Letterbox, and you're like, how the hell is this my most popular review? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned copyright. I'm new
Hmm.
to this game. I
Yeah.
haven't encountered this so much yet, but then again, I'm also not necessarily going out of my way to invite it because I
Hmm.
am trying to be cautious of it. Would
Yeah.
you say that that's like the number one thing that is like a problem for YouTubers today is this constant automated search platforms from the studios where it's like you may have a relationship with them, you know that the actual PR people you're working with don't actually want to harm you, but there are these automated programs that are searching and scanning your channel and it has nothing to do with that and then you get penalized for it anyway.
Yeah, I definitely say so. I mean, that's been the biggest problem on YouTube for decades, or since it
Mm-hmm.
was existed really. And to their credit, they've tried out some policies to try to help out the creators with that. Some of it's been good, some of it's been bad, but yeah, definitely the copyright, especially with, yeah, some of it is automated, and that sucks because it'll hold. I'm sure maybe you notice now, like when you upload a video, that's typically when the most views kind of come in. It's not too often where you'll upload a video, it'll start like way down here and then it'll just randomly go up. A lot of times, when you have like more of a following on YouTube, people click on it when you first upload it and then it'll slowly just kind of die down. So you lose a lot of that ad space really.
Mm-hmm.
But also like film studios, they will just kind of just copyright your stuff, even though with reviews at least it's all fair use because no one's putting just in general. It's always with commentary or whichever, or just taking shots from the trailer in like 7-second clips. I mean, I guess I won't call out a certain studio, but there's one studio that is very notorious for that. That
Mm-hmm.
almost, it's kind of funny to look at people's reviews for movies from that studio and you see how they edit the trailers when they intercut clips in the videos. It's like so heavily edited and distorted just because they don't want to get flagged for it, which I
Yeah.
myself have kind of tried out. So copyright is definitely an issue, and I don't really know how YouTube fixes it, just because billions of videos get uploaded. So I understand, but that's definitely the biggest one I think people face today.
And then I think it's pretty fair to say that your life has changed ever since coming onto YouTube, starting this channel. Um, is this something that you want to continue to keep on doing? Do you just see it as a side hobby? What does the future look like for you?
Yeah, I definitely want to keep doing this. I mean, it's been crazy because like I kind of mentioned earlier, like even before I had like 1,000 subscribers or whatever, I remember I would leave a comment on like the Oscar Experts live stream, and then like 10 people just below me would be like, "Oh my gosh, like he's here." I was like, "What the heck? Why do y'all care if I'm here?" And I'm not trying to be that like, "Oh, I'm so humble," but genuinely, like, why do people care that like I'm here?
Mm-hmm.
Who cares? So with that and how it is now, and like the people I've met, and like the opportunities I got, like just going to TIFF last year in person for the first time, like insane. So this is something I definitely want to keep doing. I'm also realistic with myself. I doubt this can be a full-time thing for me unless something ridiculous happens to me on YouTube.
Right.
So I I'm like I'm okay with that. I've accepted that. And luckily my job now is like there's a pretty good work-life balance. So
Mhm.
I'm cool doing both. I mean, obviously this would be like a dream to do, but I'm also realistic. I don't really see that for myself, but honestly, I'm like very happy with what I am now. If my growth just stopped today, I would still do this for as long as I could.
I feel the same way. Where if it just ended today and this was the height, like this was the peak,
Hmm.
I'd be totally okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, I,
Yeah.
I can definitely relate there, and I will admit like the struggle is real in terms of you've already hit so many great milestones. Opportunities are going to keep on rolling the longer you do it. You never know if you're going to strike gold with that one video that you upload.
Right.
Um, but at the same time, there is this like sense of content that
Hmm.
I can relate to. I'm sure many people watching this, if they do something similar, maybe they can relate to.
Yeah.
Um, but that balance of balancing, you know, personal life, day job, I do it too, man. I think a lot of people will be very surprised how many of us do that. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people sometimes think, oh, that's your one thing, right? That's all you do.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. You're
and
crazy.
I
You do this. You are like you're a machine.
I'm gonna be humble now. It's not about me right now. It's about you, buddy.
Okay. 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 All right. All right.
but yes, it is insane.
Yeah.
So I want to transition a little bit now into talking about some stuff that you would normally talk about on your show. So people can get an
Okay.
idea if they are watching this. I highly doubt it, and they don't already watch you. But if that's true, let's talk about some movies that you're looking forward to throughout the rest of the year, man. Some Oscar contenders, maybe. What's like top of your list? I know you mentioned earlier offline to me, obviously Dune Part Two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, of
goes
course.
without saying, right?
Yeah. That one is like, of course, like
So
like
there's like a
Killers of the
list of
Flower
like,
Moon.
yeah, there's like a list of obvious contenders that we're all
Yeah.
looking forward to. Barbie, Oppenheimer, Killers, like you said.
Yeah.
Is there something that, you know, not a lot of people are talking about that you've scoped out and you're like, oh man, I can't wait for that one, but nobody seems to be talking about it?
Well, I thought I was like pretty early on. Now I feel like people kind of know, but La Quimera, which came out as In Competition I Can, that was
Yeah.
one where before the Can lineup came out, I was like, and once again, this is all half-hearted, but I was kind of like, that's the best picture nom. That's what I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with that gets best picture. It's gonna win Palme d'Or, Neon. Like, so that's one where when I did that, I was like, oh, like no one's gonna do that. Like I got that one. And then as soon as I upload the video, and then it's like three other people also did that, and then it came out in the Kane competition, and now people are like really looking at that as
Mhm.
like could that win something big there. So now it's kind of like, okay, well, that kind of faded fast, but outside of the obvious, I think that is was the one where I thought I was like, okay, that's my jewel right there potentially.
I don't want to be that guy, but once I saw that Neon had it, I was like, I too thought the same thing. I was like, that's a Palme d'Or winner. This
Yeah,
could be
right, yeah,
Alice
exactly.
Rohrwacher's, you know, Oscar nomination for screenplay director or something or another. You know,
Yeah,
you just start playing these games in your head of like, okay,
exactly.
what's the path, right?
Yeah. Hmm. So
And
that's
right
one.
now, I feel like there's a path for Coreda with Monster.
Hmm.
I could see him being that international contender this year that gets his due recognition at this year's Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Man, I hope that'd be so cool.
Yeah, I want to
Another,
see what Japan
yeah.
does. I want to see what
Oh,
Japan does with Miyazaki and Koreeda. So that is something that's a little internal thing that I want to see how that plays out.
I mean, my gut tells me that they'll go with Coreda for picture unless if it's not a picture friendly film. You know what I mean?
Right, 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 right.
Like
Yeah.
if they don't, like if they really don't think it has a shot to get picture, even if it's critically acclaimed,
Hmm.
but you know, How Do You Live is digestible, and I don't know. Maybe I'm
See,
saying that because it's animation, but animation has its own hurdles of getting into Best Picture. So
most definitely.
yeah. Uh, what else? I mean, that's a great pick to start off with here. What else you got cooking?
Gosh, in terms of something small, I mean, it was Air, which I mean, for obvious reasons, I completely loved. I remember I listened to your podcast, by the way, when y'all talked about the trailer for Air, and y'all like roasted it. I was like, God dang. It's like
I
listening
didn't
to
think
it.
it
I was like,
was. I just
dang.
like here's the thing. I didn't think it was like that well constructed of a trailer.
It
I
wasn't. It wasn't.
I wasn't that sold on it, to be honest with you, but like having now watched recently Tetris, Blackberry Air, I'm like, you know what? Give me all the corporate backstory movies.
Yeah. Yeah, flaming hot, I guess. Um, I mean, gosh, I don't I feel like all the small stuff I've kind of been lucky to see already. Because
Mhm.
most of the gems we find out like later during the time. I mean, there's some stuff from Can that I'm curious about, like about dry grasses. I'm curious about that one.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's anything too small that people don't already know about. What about you? What do you look forward to?
Man, Challengers, Luca Guadagnino's upcoming film.
Hmm.
Definitely on my list with Zendaya, Timothy Chalamet, Mike Feist, who was just extraordinary in West Side Story. So very much looking forward to seeing how that one plays out.
Hmm.
Um, I would also go so far as to say there is a film that is coming out from Netflix with Annette Bening,
Oh,
directed by
Naiad.
Naiad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's being directed by Jimmy and Elizabeth, co-directors of Free Solo, The Rescue. This is their first narrative feature film, so
Hmm.
definitely have anticipation for that one for obvious reasons. I think I would
Yeah.
like to see like how they transition over into narrative feature storytelling. I think they're gonna
Right.
crush it.
Hmm. Yeah, that seems like a pitch perfect story for them
Mm-hmm.
to do. I know that Michael Shannon's directorial debut, Eric LaRue, is going to
Mm-hmm.
be playing at Tribeca,
It is,
and
yeah,
that's it. The synopsis sounds exactly like Mass, which I know both of us were like huge fans of
yeah.
when that came out. So I'm also interested about that one because I know Judy Greer has kind of been people are kind of watching her as a possible thing come award season. I've no clue if that's actually manifesting to anything, but that premise is interesting because I loved Mass and I think I'm a sucker for those kind of movies. So I'm interested to see about that one. I'll say.
Definitely agree with you on that one. I don't feel a lot of times that Tribeca is a good breeding ground
Yeah,
for
yeah.
movies, to be honest with you. Like,
Hmm.
oh man, I hate saying it like this, but it really does feel like Sundance rejects a lot of times,
Facts.
that go over
Yeah,
there. And
yeah.
then there's so many films that premiere Tribeca and aren't streaming like within 2 weeks.
Hmm.
But they do a good job of getting you excited on paper. Like you
Right.
read who's in it, what it's about, and you do get excited.
Hmm.
So I already know, even though I should not allow myself to get to this point, I already know I'm probably going to end up seeing a couple.
Yeah.
Even though, like, I swore this year I was going to do less because I feel like I kill myself every year at Tribeca because I don't take off from work when I cover
Oh.
it.
Oh.
And it's just so exhausting. And it's also like,
Yeah.
the weather is starting to get warmer. I'm sweating in New York. I'm just not enjoying it as much, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe this year it'll be awesome, or maybe I'll just get lucky and choose the right ones. But that one you
Yeah.
mentioned there, that does sound pretty fantastic.
Hmm. Yep.
Um not only that too, but like just talking about awards contenders here for a minute. What is like do you have like a year in advance like best picture front runner? I know that's ridiculous to ask at this time of year because nobody's seen anything, but just for
Yeah.
shits and giggles.
Right. So I don't usually go with like a safe pick this early. It's weird. Sometimes I'll end up going with a safe pick later on, but
Mm-hmm.
at this time of year, it's like whatever. So Killers is out, not doing that. I doubt, I doubt I'll ever put that at number one, to be honest, but not going to Killers. As of now, it's kind of hard for me to put anything but Past Lives, which I feels a little bit
Oh,
small. Yeah. So I am rocking with the Past Lives train as someone who has not seen it. Hurts so bad. I'm rocking with that one. It just the patterns that we've seen from the Academy, it doesn't feel so ridiculous that Past Lives could end up just going all the way.
I gotta say, as someone who's seen it, adores it, loves it, cannot wait to see it again. I can't remember. Were you covering Sundance virtually or you were?
Yeah.
Yes.
Virtually.
That's why. Okay.
Yep. 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 Yep.
It's hard for me to look back. I remember who was there at the screening,
Hmm.
like that I saw, but I
Yeah.
found out later that there were other people, and then it's like, wait a minute, were you at Sundance? Were you covering
Right.
virtually? It's tough.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I knew as soon as they announced, because that's the thing, when they announce certain screenings and then they say this won't be available on streaming and it's only for in person, you kind of have to make it a priority to go see it at Sundance, because you
Oh,
know that
totally.
they intentionally did that for a reason.
Right.
And so, yeah, that turned out to be true. That film is extraordinary. I mean,
Yeah.
that is a unbelievable directorial debut.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. The biggest hurdle is going to be the perception that it is too small, like an After Sun.
Right.
So A24 has their luck cut out for them in terms of making it an even bigger contender than After Sun was, but working in its favor, I think it is way more accessible than After
Right.
Sun.
Yeah.
After Sun was much more meditative. It didn't hold your hand through anything. You had to work to understand the complex emotions that were at play in that movie.
Mhm.
This film, I think, is nuanced, super complex, but very digestible. You don't have
Yeah.
to necessarily work hard, but the content that it is dealing with is, to me, just as thematically rewarding as something in After Sun. And a
Right.
lot of that has to do with the writing, the performances, the pitch perfect direction. Dude, if that were to happen, oh my God, I would be beside myself. Also, too,
Yeah.
A24 2 years in a row. What?
Right.
That would be insane.
That'd be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
What about
But
you? Do you?
um, you know, I don't really do this time of year. I usually wait
Yeah.
until we get to middle, beginning of summer before I
Mhm.
start taking a real hard look. But I do have to say, by default, right now, Killers.
Yeah.
But I'm also not serious about it. You know.
Right. Yeah.
But like, for the reasons that you're not, I recognize and wholeheartedly understand. Yeah, like Irishman went 0 for 10. Fablemans also went 0 for 7. Like, we're not really giving these old timer I don't want to say old timer for these guys, but these cinematic
Yeah.
legends, we're not giving them their proper due because they've already gotten it. Let's move on to other people at this point, you know? And it feels
Right.
like the Academy wants to reward new emerging artists than they do going back in time to someone that they've already previously recognized before.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, not that this matters, but 3.5 hours, I don't know. Not for me personally. I'm excited for it. Give me whatever. But, the Academy, I don't know. Doesn't feel like a Braveheart thing anymore.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Yeah, like, good for a nomination.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Like, there's a slot that's reserved for you, Marty. It's right there.
Exactly. Exactly. They have your name on it already. You
You
just
gotta
got to
love when
push
you
it
get
through.
to you gotta love when you get to that point in your career where it's like every movie you make, you're just kind of like expected to be there, no matter
Yeah.
what
You're
it
just like
is.
in. They'll just be like,
Like,
oh, yeah, sure.
Paul Thomas Anderson has a film coming out. All right, picture, director, screenplay. Early predictions.
Exactly.
Let's go.
Like, yeah, done. Done.
Yep.
Congratulations.
I guess Guillermo del Toro has kind of entered that conversation a little bit too now.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I mean, isn't he doing that Frankenstein thing next?
I'll still put it in for early
Yeah.
predictions, you know?
Sure. The makeup. Lock it in. That's a
How are you
nom.
feeling about Greta Gerwig right now with Barbie, speaking of that? Because given the track record of her previous two films, it would make sense to say, well, Barbie will probably be an above the line contender as well. But right now, I'm just leaning towards screenplay because until we see the film, I have a hard time imagining the Academy literally nominating a film called Barbie for Best Picture. But
Yeah.
I do want to, give her the benefit of the doubt, and I think it's totally possible still, given her track record. Like I said, at the same time, it's like, even if the film is critically well reviewed and makes a lot of money, which I'm sure it will, I still am struggling a little bit just in terms of personal biases of the Academy.
Right. Yeah. I'm kind of in your lane there. I would have it first, some text now at least. Above the line, I don't know. Like I have to put my own like excitement for it. Like that Barbie is the one I'm most curious about. So if you want to
Mm-hmm.
put that as most anticipated, whichever, like probably, yeah. I'm like the most curious on Barbie. So it's always been, I think now I would have it outside of picture, outside of a decent amount above the line. But yeah, screenplay could happen. I don't know if the Ryan Gosling thing is real, but I would love for it to happen. I keep seeing some Ken slander. I won't have it. So it's I would have it some text for now, but I'm hopeful for it. But like you
His
said, like,
his best performance still to date to me is The Nice Guys, which was another
oh my
comedy film
God,
with him.
it's so good. I know
I
that
thought he was
movie
great
gets
in
talked
that.
about a lot on Twitter, but like, goddamn, that movie is fantastic.
Oppenheimer, my current prediction is going to be one of Nolan's least successful films at the box office.
Yep.
I just have a hard time seeing today's modern movie audience. His fandom will show up the same way that Ari Aster's fandom is showing up for Beau is Afraid. Like,
Right.
these filmmakers have their fans, and the fans will show up. However, there is a limit to that, and I do believe that once you tell people it's a 3 hour, it's not an action film, it's a drama, even
Yeah.
if there is a real in camera atomic explosion that was captured by Nolan using IMAX technology,
Right.
that's only going to get people so far. And the question then becomes, does it do repeat viewings? Do people want to go see it again and sit through the 3 hours to watch that bomb explode or whatever else the movie is offering?
Right. Yeah.
I can just foresee, you know, it'll do probably relatively well, but I don't think it's going to do numbers like Interstellar or, of course, none of the Dark Knight or Inception or nothing like that.
Yeah.
Dunkirk, even, I don't even know if it's going to approach that. It will do better than Tenet because of the pandemic, obviously, but
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't know. I feel like they need to start ramping up a little bit more. Like Barbie pushed out the second trailer. They had all these character posters. They had the like do your own thing that was like
mm-hmm.
super popular. All these other corporations started using it to promote their own stuff. And then Oppenheimer's kind of sitting there with the one trailer. And I just saw for the first time the actual IMAX trailer a few
Right.
days ago, which is like a much better trailer.
Mm-hmm.
The IMAX one. I get why they didn't put that one out, but I feel like you kind of gotta start the ramp up here. Otherwise, like for them, it might be a little embarrassing if you end up number two that opening weekend. So I feel
Yeah.
like they need to start doing stuff. But I totally agree. It's more character focused, which is actually why I think it'll perform much better with the Academy than some of his recent ones.
I
But
agree.
also, yeah, it'll definitely make less money. I think that's totally fair.
Yeah. I I'm very excited because it was exactly the movie I wanted him to make after Tenet. I was like, you can't keep going bigger, man. You've hit a
Yeah.
limit. It's too much at this point.
Right. Yeah. Please
And some
stop.
people really dug Tenet. I was a little bit more mixed on it. I've grown to appreciate it more over time, with repeat
Hmm.
viewings. But I'm glad that he's going back to something like this, where hopefully it kind of gives me some sort of memory of Memento or The Prestige. Just something a little bit smaller in scale. I mean,
Right.
I say this, and
Well,
yet it's probably going to
yeah.
be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the bomb goes off. But yeah, totally. Totally.
All right. Quick questions now to end this here.
Sure.
What is one film festival you haven't been to that you would absolutely love to go to?
Telluride.
Yeah, I can attest to
Telluride.
that.
I hear only good things about it, so
It
very jealous.
is ridiculously expensive.
Yeah. Yep,
Like,
yep,
the
yep.
amount of money that you spend to go to Telluride is like almost the exact same money that you would spend to go to something like Cannes, and you could be in
Mm,
Cannes for a week, 2 weeks, week and a half, whatever.
right.
Telluride, you're only there for 3 days.
Exactly.
It's
But
ridiculous.
sounds so like chill though, so like
It
homey.
is.
So that's what I like about it. So
There's
I
no
would want to do that.
paparazzi. It's so
Right.
laid back. The weather is gorgeous, but like in
Hmm.
a not hot way, but like in a sort of spring summer mixture sort of. Well, no, sorry, summer fall. There you go. Like
Yeah.
like the in between of summer fall sort of way. And you
Right.
get like that mountain air breeze. Yeah, it's great.
Hmm.
Definitely my favorite film festival personally. And I'm
Yeah.
saying this before I go to Cannes, which everyone's telling me, oh, you're gonna love Cannes. Cannes gonna become your favorite festival. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? All right.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah, man. I've put it off. I could have gone last year, maybe even the year before, but like I was putting it off because I think I was slightly intimidated by it.
Sure.
Also, I just wanted to give other people a chance to go.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, once I kind of got with that, Marty was going, I was like,
Got to.
I got to
It's like
do it.
this is the year. This is the year to
This
do
is
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next question.
Hmm.
And I know this is redundant, silly. I know that it changes with time for some people, but what is your favorite movie of all time?
Um, I'm gonna go with oh gosh, this is where people turn on me right now. I'm gonna go with La La Land. I'm gonna go with La La Land.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, no, for sure. The reason though is because my then girlfriend, now fiance, I guess, but girlfriend at the time was like, "Hey, let's go see La La Land." I was like, "No, don't want to do that." And like I said earlier, I'm someone who was always like, "Yeah, I'll see whatever." But this one, I was like, "It's a romance, it's a musical, two things I just don't care about." Like I heard it's very good and like Oscar player or whatever. So it was like operating at a disadvantage for me already. And that was when I think I was like graduating high school or senior going into college or whatever. And I think that's where I was really like, I understand like the love of like filmmaking like now. Because I'm not someone who was like, oh, when I was 5 years old, I saw Boogie Nights and I was like, that's the one. I love film now. Totally not me. Never like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm still like very early in my like cinephile journey. But that was the one where I was like, I think I understand. I think I get it now. That Danny DeVito meme, where it's like, I get it now. I feel like that was me. So I would say that, I guess. Shout out Parasite
How
though.
old were you when that happened?
2016. Maybe it's like 17, 18,
Yeah.
something like
So
that.
yeah, that tracks. I definitely know a lot of people that have been on that same trajectory, right? Where late teens, they see the one, it unlocks something in them, and then all of a sudden it's like you're just on a whole new path in terms of discovery.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time, actually. I miss that time in my life where you see the one, it ignites something within you. All of a sudden now you just want to consume, consume, consume. And you're
Yeah.
just like going through history and trying to find like any references you can. Back then, I remember I printed out the IMDb top 250 and I was like, I'm going to work off
Mm.
of this list.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much what I did. I was like, okay, so then I just started bringing in like best picture nominees,
Mm-hmm.
start knocking them off, and you just kind of go from there.
And then, taste just changes over time. I
Yeah.
never would have thought that my taste would ever change, but it's like the more you expose yourself to, the more
Hmm.
you do get a better sense of this is quality. Like this is good. This feeds me
Hmm.
versus this is just pure entertainment versus this is absolute garbage.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing how that morphs and shifts over time.
Hmm.
What is the one video that you've uploaded to your channel that you were most proud of?
Gosh, I knew this. I knew this question was coming. I knew this question was coming. What did I prepare for? Gosh. Um, I think, oh gosh, I would have to go with my, well, gosh. Okay, so my Oscar reaction stuff, I don't feel like I can pick because that's not, I'm just like reacting to something else. Like I feel like the Oscars nominations or whatever, like that's the star of the video, not necessarily myself.
Mm-hmm.
I might go with like my policeman review or my tar review. It was like after TIFF. And it's funny because those are videos that I don't even have like myself on camera. I'm just putting a bunch of edits of like whatever I'm talking about. I'll put it up on the screen. And it's like kind of stupid. It was like the first time I've ever done a video like that. But I remember because the PR people that I worked with wanted to see like my thoughts on my policeman or whatever. And I sent
Mm-hmm.
them out. And they're always usually just like, okay, great, like thanks. And like they all like responded back to me. They're like, that was like the most hilarious video I've like ever seen on like about a movie. And now it's cool because they'll usually tell me that after stuff too. Like even my like Bo is Afraid one now. So I think that was I guess that would be it.
So you like getting the feedback, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was nice because they're PR people. All these people are sending them reviews to send back to the studio. I never expect anything else outside of a confirmation that I received it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, yeah, it was cool.
That's cool. And then the last thing I'm going to ask you here, is there something that you haven't done yet? Whether it's, I know you mentioned earlier going to Telluride, You're excited to go back to TIFF again, but whether it's on YouTube or outside of YouTube, is there something that you are looking forward to doing that you haven't had a chance to do yet?
So I guess it would ideally I would want to collab with someone in person. I know that's like a small goal, but I would definitely want to do that. But I've always kind of thought about doing something like a website, but not just with film, with almost just like a straight up media site in general, whether it's pop culture, sports, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that I've always thought about. So I feel like as I kind of grow this community, that's something that's always been on the back of my mind. Something like that, I guess. Something bigger.
I feel like that's a whole other conversation here that could take us way more time. So I'm not going to go
Yeah.
into detail
Yeah.
with you about it, but
Yeah.
thank you for like giving us a little bit of a snapshot window into your process, your life, and also too the content that you put out there, man, and your hopes and dreams in this case.
Yeah.
Really,
No,
really
thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me. No, thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
totally.
I always appreciate you like reaching out. Like for real.
Hey, listen, man, who are we if we don't try to help support one another, right?
Right. That's right. All right.
But for all of our listeners and watchers out there, for those that don't know, Jonathan Fuji, the film drunk, tell everyone where they can find you on YouTube and the internet.
Yeah, YouTube, Twitter, Letterbox, just the film drunk. I should pop up. I make it real simple.
Where did the film drunk come from?
I just made it up, honestly. I just made it up because drunk, I wanted people to associate that this is like a very chill, loose, not your typical, I don't know, reviewer or whatever.
But not like you're drunk.
No, I haven't
Were you
gotten
drunk
drunk.
when you came up with it?
No, I was sober. I'm pretty sure I was sober. I haven't gotten drunk on camera as much. I'll say that's
Wait,
another
wait,
goal for
as
me.
much. Wait a minute. Which videos can I go back and see where you
Uh,
are?
I did like a Q&A when I hit X amount of subscribers. I was taking a bunch of shots there. I think I did one for the Golden Globes a couple years ago. I didn't do any last year, much to the chagrin of my subscribers. So I gotta get back on that.
You know
I'm
what
not
though?
living up to the name.
After Babylon lost the original score, I felt like you needed one.
Oh my gosh, you really bring that up right at the end of this year. Oh man, that was hilarious. That was probably my most funny tweet in terms of how people responded to me. That was
We
so
all
funny.
knew. We all checked on you. I checked
That
on
was,
you.
that was hilarious. Oh my gosh. Wow. Great.
It's
Now I'm
pretty
hurting
amazing.
again. Sick.
For those of you
Shout
that
out to
haven't
you,
seen
man.
it, like for serious enough, for those who haven't seen it, iconic moment, hilarious. I laughed so hard when I saw your reaction to that moment. It made the moment actually go down easier for me. So
Okay. Well,
thank you for that.
glad I could do something for you there. 'Cause I was going through it, certainly. Going through it.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much once again for joining us here. For those of you that are watching right now, this is Next Best Picture's YouTube channel. I am the owner, editor-in-chief of nextbestpicture.com, Matt Neglia. Give us a subscribe and let us know what you think of the channel. We really, really appreciate your feedback and support, and we will see you all next time.